Okay, so welcome everyone to
Hello.
a completely unplanned session of the. Stop laughing. It's a completely unplanned session of a LearnFree video, um, and we started this out today based on this started out today with Josua and I getting rather annoyed about an article we saw in the Witness from Natal, which said homeschool warning. So we looked at this and. We sort of started, as we were talking about it, we started to get a little bit more annoyed. So I should just probably go back a bit and say who's with us. So as usual, we have Josua Botha here.
Hello.
Who is a homeschooling alumni, someone who's actually been through the whole homeschooling process. And today we also have Marike van Zyl joining us, also known as Circumnavigation Girl.
Oh yes.
Okay, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. Okay, so there was this article in the Witness, and it's gone away. Come back, article in the Witness, and it essentially was a warning to parents who are homeschooling,
Consider homeschooling in this lockdown
period. Crisis homeschooling, effectively. I don't know what you want to. We still haven't thought of a good word for it, but people are in a crisis situation. They're at home. They don't want to send their kids into the school environment at the moment. And I thought it was quite fun because when we read this article, this was the quote that shot out at me. It said, "You can't just keep your child at home and think that today you are doing a bit of maths and reading tomorrow. That's not education." And so if that's our criteria, then I'm speaking to two highly uneducated people.
Yes,
as we would have said in the past at school and possibly been in trouble for, you would be doof. So, Josua, maybe then the best way to lead into that is to explain, how did you do your home education and where are you now? And is this what you did? Did you just do a little bit of maths today and a little bit of reading tomorrow, and then you and that's basically how you were, and that's how you became uneducated?
Well, in all honesty, yes. I just did a bit of math every day and a bit of English and writing and stuff. And by about 11, at least you should be already finished with all your stuff. And it also happened quite frequently to me when I was like, say, 12, that by September I haven't really gotten halfway through my math book for the year yet, so I jump in and try to finish everything on time, and it was very unstructured, if you could put it that way. And as you would expect, I ended up horribly, and now I'm stuck. But no, actually, now I'm a computer science student at Tux, and I'm a research assistant. From first year, actually, I've been programming for the university for researchers, which usually only happens to second year or third year students. So I didn't end up as a totally uneducated person, and it's not because I am incredibly bright or anything. It's just because that actually is education. Because
yeah, we can attest to that.
We can attest to that. It actually just a bit of reading and math today is education, because you also do other things during the day, which is extremely valuable. One of the things, for example, which I did in my free time is I did robotics. I built Lego robots, and that led to me competing in Lego robotics competitions and competing internationally, representing South Africa in that, which led me to computer science, right, where I am now, which gave me programming experience. And my sister did lots of art, and the Van Zyls had a chance to sail around the world, where they learned to dive. She's got like how many hundreds of dives?
Technically, I've got 100.
100 dives. 100 dives right across the world.
100 log dives while we were sailing, and 150 total.
An experience of being in many different countries and learning Spanish a little bit of Spanish in Brazil.
My sister's better.
Which was possible because she did a bit of math and a bit of reading every day. So that was how my schooling was when I was quite young. When I was till I was about 16. But when I was 16, suddenly you realize you'll have to work a bit more than that to get a good matric and get all the final work done. So then you work a bit harder, a little bit more every day. But the reason it is real education, education is because what you want to learn is you want to learn how to be a person acting rightly in the world. And the best place to learn that is not out of a book, but from people who are already living in the world. And so even though I only did a little bit of math every day and a little bit of reading, I read lots of books because we were reading as a family, and I was reading books about many different things, history books. I wasn't doing history, but I was reading history books. And I wasn't doing math, but I was calculating mathematical things to make a robot do something. And so even though you're not doing it formally out of a book, doesn't mean you're not learning, you're not doing education. I mean, you could do it in actually a more hands-on way, which is real education, because you're really learning in the real world what matters, and you're doing it right now. It's always better to do the thing you're training to do instead of doing a proxy, right? So you could learn to do programming by reading the theory, or you could write a program. And you need some of both, but it's more valuable, the actual experience. And that's what the freedom to do a bit of math and a bit of reading every day allows you to do. It allows that extra time to creatively engage in learning. So yeah.
And Marike, your experiences, as we alluded to, your nickname is Circumnavigation Girl, and you have a radically different kind of learning, well, a similar kind of experience, but you learned in different. Well, let's say you learned on the move, so to speak. You're an itinerant learner.
The whole reason we started homeschooling as a family was because we wanted to be able to sail around the world. So if you're in a school system, it's very restricted. It's not very easy to leave it. So when my parents thought, they want to sail around the world one day, they actually looked up on homeschooling, because they thought, okay, we'll have to educate the children on the boat while we're on the boat. And then my mom liked the lifestyle so much, they just decided, okay, well, no, we're homeschooling. We're not going to even start with putting the children in school and then taking them out and homeschooling them on the boat. We're just going to start with the homeschooling approach. And so while we were on the boat, we did work. I actually wrote some of my Cambridge A-levels while we were sailing, when we stopped in New Zealand. But before we started sailing, before we started with Cambridge, I think we only started Cambridge around 13, 14. Before that, we read books and did a bit of math and read some more books.
And the thing is, so even though when in the articles they write and they say reading a bit of, it seems like a little bit, you're just doing a little reading and then you do nothing else, you just watch TV. That's not what you're supposed to do. That's not what we mean by you just do a little bit. I mean, you're doing other things in your other time which you also want to learn. But the point is basically you don't have to sit 8 hours the whole day reading a math book to become educated.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marike, let's just unpack that a little bit, because I think one of the things that I like about your story is how you're kind of on the boat and you kind of decided, okay, I'm going to write an exam in port when I reach a port. So, I mean,
it wasn't quite that.
Yeah, they had to. She booked.
Well,
they were away, and then they booked to write in New Zealand. I mean, like in a half a year's time, we're going to be in New Zealand, so I've got to write there. That's literally what they did.
Well, we kind of.
So how did you go about it?
So we did some IGCSE levels before sailing. IGCSE. Yeah, we did that before sailing, and then to get my matric, I needed A level. Well, you basically need 5 AS levels in Cambridge. But if you do A levels, they stretch further. So you don't have to do everything like right next to each other. You can do some A levels and then wait like a year before doing the next bunch, and it'll all still count for the same matric. So we thought, okay, we need to write some A levels so that it can start counting towards a matric. And so my sister and I, we started studying for it, I think in basically January 2018, when we were still in Panama. And we just
for those who don't know, A levels is in South Africa, you go almost to mid-year university level.
Yeah.
The math and stuff you learn, accounting. So most of when she's studying mathematics and text now, and so the first semester she knows lots of the stuff already because they did it in A level. So it's not an easy exam, but the stuff they did when they were smaller, the playing and reading and doing a bit of math, getting that foundation right, and doing a little bit of that, reading lots, definitely prepared them to study this when they wanted to do it later.
Yeah, and the reason my youngest sister, she's like 18 months younger than I am, she did the same courses as I did. We were at the same time, partly because when I was around 10, I decided I didn't want to do math anymore. And I actually stopped doing math for something like a year. And then my sister caught up, and then I was shamed into doing math again.
And now she's studying math. So
okay, so I think this. I think that experience comes across for a lot of people as quite a radical experience. And I think the important thing is to recognize, I suppose, in some extent, we're actually going through quite radical times. So you were in fact, on a boat, you were in a kind of lockdown schooling, really, in a way. You were, in the sense that your school was traveling, but you weren't getting up every morning, going somewhere to be educated, and then coming back in the afternoon. So you almost had that like lockdown experience, in the sense that you're on the boat, but you had access to the world, and you had access to your parents, and then at the end of that, what you were able to do was you were able to find a particular combination of subjects or exams, and I think that's the other thing that people maybe would be a bit scared about, and use that, and then get into university, and proceed with something that and I think something else that's important that you raise, and proceed with something that you love and enjoy, but something that you actually stopped for a while because you didn't like it, and then decided later.
And then learned to really love it, because you're allowed to stop for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of what home education does, is you try very much to teach children to love to learn, to really enjoy so many of the things on it. I was joking about how informal and how I just did a bit, but my parents were very proactive in teaching me in ways I didn't realize was learning, right? So I didn't realize I was learning, but I just wanted to read these books about jets. So, and I'm Afrikaans, so I didn't want to read English, but the books were just in English. So I had to learn English, and I had to learn how to read it sufficiently well to be able to understand it, because I wanted to know. And feeding that sort of fire is extremely important. Exactly with the robotics as well, because I wanted to do robotics. I did like hours and hours every day working at that, but because I was allowed to, and I was encouraged. And I've told the story before, but I'm quite into researching now. You have to do it a lot for my degree as well, and for my work, and just for anything. But the first research I ever really did, first time I was on the internet, I was doing research about different dog breeds and writing up about them, because I wanted a dog. And my parents told me, if you want a dog, you got to tell us which breed would work the best for our family and for you, and which ones do you like, and just tell us about them. So I did hours and hours of work and writing and doing research and finding out about different websites, the credibility of sources, because I wanted a dog. And I enjoyed it every moment of it. And I still, every day now, if I see a dog, I can tell you what breed it is. I mean, so that sort of, so even though it might sound to people like you don't do anything, you don't do all these formal things, because you actually have the capacity to learn what you want to learn, and your parents have the capacity to just guide you in the right direction to become passionate about things and become.
Yeah, in a sense, they're actually learning exactly what they would have learned in school, but in a far friendlier environment, in a much better way that they actually want to learn it, and that it sticks in the best way. So it's not you have to learn this, it's just I want to learn this.
Okay, so I just want to contextualize this conversation a little bit, because it's maybe drifted a little bit from where we were, some of the things we're talking about, but which is also good, is that I don't think this is what we're saying based on this article, that we're expecting every parent to do who wants to put their kid back into school in 2021.
No.
What essentially we're saying is that what we're really debating here is the issue of, is this a fair statement that education is not doing just a little bit of math on this day and a little bit of English on the next day.
Yeah,
and I think
that's
Joshua jumps in.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that and a lot of this is generational. So you're from a completely different generation to me. You're from essentially my kids' generation. And I can't really, and I suppose the parents of today who've got kids in primary school and in high school almost probably of a slightly different generation to mine, slightly younger perhaps in general, particularly if they're in primary school. But a lot of your experience is exactly the same experience that I would have had at school. And I was reflecting on this today when we were thinking about this article, is that what are the things that I really enjoyed at school? Well, those were conditioned by who were nice and or good teachers, more than anything else. And then perhaps, and so there's a huge element of chance in a sense to that. And the other thing was, all the things that I can remember are perhaps projects that we were given to do over the holidays. I think very different from the kind of projects kids have at school today, where they're these very high pressured kind of projects, but it was kind of keep the kids busy while they're going for a very long holiday. And I can remember you did dogs, and I can remember I did cheetahs. and we have a joke in our family about like going through history, what have been top animals. And so when I was young and had hair, the cheetah and the dolphin were top animals. And that was like,
I like leopards.
Yeah, but you got to ask yourself, in society, is that top animal, right? It's like a thing of top animal, right? But dolphins and kind of cheetahs were top animal when I was at school. And I did a project on cheetahs, and I ended up reading essentially what was university level research about cheetah behavior and whatever. And I did this project. And that's the thing that sticks with me more than anything else. I couldn't tell you much about cheetahs today, but I could tell you that what I found out is that, so the place I learned was the library. The public library was the place I learned, and I accessed those books. There was no internet. This was long before the internet. And that's where I accessed those books, and that's where I learned. So I don't know what, if perhaps the generation of parents who are younger than me and perhaps and older than you have perhaps been in a much more constrained schooling experience where they haven't had that time to get bored at home. And I think the value of being bored at home is that it gives you that chance to go and find out what you're interested in. So I was always passionate about World War II because one of the things we used to get in, we had soldiers, and we also used to have these like little black and white comics, and used to love these little black and white war adventure comics. And then that led me to studying World War II. And I was just telling my wife today that my teacher, I think in Standard 6, confidentially told her, my history teacher told her confidentially in Standard 6, after I was sent out, that I actually knew more about World War II than the teacher. So I just think trying to bring this down in a sense, because this a lot of this conversation has sounded a little bit like unreal.
Yeah,
to bring it down to reality is that, in a sense, that I think you, being much younger than I am, have a very different experience and engagement with education. I have a different experience because I'm a lot older, but we had that free time. And maybe some parents today struggle with that because maybe their education was somewhere between that.
So I think most parents know that what they've learned in their lives that was most valuable wasn't the very formal parts of their education. The most valuable things they've learned. That's definitely a part of it, but as you said, what I'm trying to get at is a lot of the very valuable things we've learned from very many different places. For example, books, different kinds of people, and teachers. And there are so many resources available for us to learn from. So I was telling about how parents are guiding us. My parents were guiding me when I was young, but a lot of that was just self-guided, where I was just doing whatever I wanted to study and working at it. And so I don't think we should say we expect parents whose children are now staying home and studying, doing home education in this lockdown period to fully fledged abandon or everything else they're doing and become this only teaching their children. That's all they do. But just that little bit of encouragement and guidance does make that real education, because you have these resources you can access, you can learn from, and that little bit of feedback can come back. And I think that's where we can go to the next point is, what is the most valuable part that can be, what does it, does the education system actually bring that isn't already there? Because books are out there, lectures are online.
So let's raise that question, because I think the other thing in the article said was when children go back to school now, or when some children go back to school, other children are going to be at home, and it's going to be impossible to educate children in the classroom and also provide online learning. Now, I don't think any of us really believe that, because you're smiling. I mean, so let's from the first year. It's from the first year computer science students.
Second year, yeah.
Suggestions. Well, second year now. Sorry, second
no
year.
Worries, no worries.
What the piece actually says before you say that is that it's going to be difficult to teach a couple online and be in school to teach as well. So it's difficult from the teacher's point of view. And I agree semi to that, especially if you are not used to doing anything online. Although during the lockdown, I think people have pretty much gotten used to Zoom and doing stuff online. So that wouldn't really be a restriction anymore. But it does make sense that it would be difficult. It wouldn't be just normal or...
Yes. So we agree that it would be difficult to do the one-on-one teaching. I mean, that you have to sort of be with someone and focus on them to teach. But to give a lesson, that would not be hard to film while you're giving it to the other students, and then provide the filmed lesson to the students so they could watch the filmed lesson. And then for them to get assistance when they have want extra help. And that's where on the internet is very useful. The kids can get lots of help that way. But it's definitely going to be a challenge for the teachers to help these kids in school, and then also assist these kids at home. But to provide the actual lesson, itself, you can just film that, or provide even a link to some YouTube video that has the same content. So that shouldn't be a problem. So now we're going to the second part, is that one-on-one thing. And that's the sort of the beauty of sort of the home education idea, is that it makes that more real. If you can get that one-on-one more, if that's sort of the central part of what education is that guidance and help, that's where that's the part you can't just get on the internet. And I think that's what teachers are worrying about, because they want to provide that still, right? And they can't easily provide that one-on-one. So what's the solution?
But I think what we need to do is we need to look at, I think it's a good point, but I think what we need to distinguish is that some of this is informational, right?
Yes.
So the education experience is informational, and you can access the best teachers in the world. We were talking earlier about how in my day, what we would do is, if we we knew who the best law lecturer was. If we were assigned to law lecturer B, we would go to law lecturer A's lectures. We had to physically do that. Today, you can go and look up those lectures online.
Yeah, that frequently happens at university. Students decide to not attend lectures and just find online information about it and watch online lectures. And then they've got a better lecturer. So that happens. And I mean, so that's not the thing that is the problem. That's not the policy problem.
And the issue then is that one-to-one. And the question really is that how much of that one-to-one is actually happening in class?
In school already, yes.
In school already. And wouldn't teachers then be freed to some extent to do more one-to-one if they were spending more time directing kids to the informational stuff, which they can do in their own time in a way, and spending more time one-on-one with students? Because I think parents' experience in general, certainly parents of the generation of kids that are now at school, is that they're spending a lot of time doing that one-to-one as homework. And,
that's very true.
Or getting tutors to do that one-to-one. Whereas a lot of what they're receiving of at school is essentially this informational stuff, or in fact, just almost sometimes even just general guidance. I honestly can't even say from my days at school, which is a very long time ago, that we received a hell of a lot of one-to-one.
Yeah, And so that's actually the point now. Yeah, is now you can continue with this informational part if you want to. If the teacher, this is our suggestion. If you don't want to provide other lectures or other videos about the content, just film it and put it on YouTube. It's not really hard, and just send a link through it. And let the kids watch that, and then they can get the one-to-one as they usually did from parents and from other friends and people who help them via WhatsApp and other stuff. And then they could be some channel where they can contact a teacher for extra help. I mean, that's
one of the ways that you could do it.
That's one of the solutions.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways we can approach it. So I think we're almost probably running out of time for this.
We still got time, yeah. But we should perhaps go faster.
We'll wrap it up. So
Okay.
do you want to finish off? You've got any final thoughts?
I'd put some summaries and then you could finish for us, I think. So I would just say that firstly, many of these claims made in this document is just it's just too blankety and it doesn't seem to actually understand what it's about, and I think this doesn't value highly enough the capacity that children and parents have for learning on their own and actually going through the trouble of learning, because that's something people can actually do, and it's a valuable skill. To be able to learn and to learn by yourself is really valuable, because then you can keep teaching yourself things for the rest of your life. So just because it's going to be a little bit difficult for the kids to learn from home, because it is going to be, they're not going to be spoon-fed the exact same way they were always. You're not going to tell them, work now, work now, work now. I mean, you can't do that anymore. And that's going to make some kids not work because they don't want to. But the point is, that's still something they have to learn if they want to be successful in the world one day. They still have to learn to work by themselves. They still have to learn how to learn, because in this modern world, you got to keep learning the whole time. You can't just stay with your old knowledge and be fine. So in a sense, this lockdown is a blessing to the kids who can stay home and now learn to learn by themselves, because they're going to have to learn it at university if they're not going to learn it now. And they're going to have to learn it sometime, because it's really necessary to be able to do that by yourself and find your own information. And so that's really valuable. And I think people should grab this with both hands and say, well, we in any case need to learn how to learn. Let's grab it now and try it now, because this is the perfect time for that.
And Marike, something from you?
Well, I haven't had as long to think about this as you two. You're the instigators of this talk, but I like the fact that we can be at home and look for information and learn hands-on. There's something. Yeah, I don't know.
I think you noted previously how you enjoy lingering over some of the things you have to learn for university now. How you can just pause on that and just do that for a while.
Yeah, learn at my own rate. So even staying at home and learning, watching lectures, I can fast forward the stuff that I know, and I can pause and just sit and think for 5 minutes to understand a step that completely eludes me, and then continue and then be completely on track with where the lecture is going, instead of sitting for an hour and missing half of the lecture because I was stuck at point 5 and I don't understand, and it's bothering me and I can't focus on the rest of the lecture because I can't follow the train of thought. So instead of having that, I can actually take in the information and process it the way I want to, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that the criticisms of home education in this time have wrong. It's that it seems to think of it just as inherently less capable of teaching you something, but it's not true at all. That we know for a fact, and we can talk for a long time about how to do it, what's a good approach, what could parents do now to help their kids, what can kids do to learn. But that's what we're talking about now. We're just saying it can work. It has worked in many different ways. If you take the trouble to figure out how to do it, if you try it your best, you do some research about it, you'll be fine. That's sort of the thing. Yeah, that's basically what we want to say.
Yeah. So I think actually let's maybe pick up from something that you said. I suppose there's quite a few threads here that are quite important. And I think the one thread from what you were saying, Marike, is this idea. So essentially what we're actually saying is that one, this ability to control the pace at which the content is delivered is actually a huge advantage.
Yes, it is.
I think we need to understand that there's a huge value to that. I think too, it's also important not to see this is obviously a critical kind of experience or crisis kind of experience, but it's important not to see it outside of a whole context of change that's happening across the world. One of the reasons the virus has spread so quickly to so many countries is because of fundamental changes that are happening in society. And one of almost like it's a natural system. So you kind of almost have this natural system of the virus, but there's also needs to be a natural response from the educational perspective, which looks at adapting naturally to these other changes. And I think that's where you come with the point that you're making about the fact that you're going to have to learn by yourself at some stage. Sadly, actually, I think maybe you may be mistaken here or maybe a bit positive about this still. But often what's actually now happening is university is turning into the new high school. And it's only at the postgraduate level often that you're actually doing some of that learning for yourself, because we're not producing people coming out of the schooling system able to learn for themselves. And I think that's
it's probably true for many degrees, but for computer science at least, you still have to do a lot of self-study to be able to program the stuff you need to program. So, but it probably is true for some degrees.
And we know that Josua is very big on computer science and computer science and all of that. But I think the issue there is that I think that is one of the key things, is that people have to learn for themselves. They have to learn their whole lifetime.
I can actually comment on that, because first year at varsity I felt was extremely negative in some sense, because the lecturers were telling us the whole time, if you don't study, you will fail. And it's as if they had to say it the whole time, and I couldn't understand it. And then second year, suddenly no one's telling you this anymore, because if you made it second year, then obviously you made it through. But they have this urge to tell the people this, because they don't realize that they have to look for the information themselves and find a way to get through. So
okay, so I think what we have proved is that by doing a little bit of maths and a little bit of English or a little bit of languages, you can be educated. I think we had an educated discussion. I hope people enjoyed it. And this wasn't actually the conversation we were planning to have, but we can thank the witness and some school governing body association for annoying us enough today to finally
talk about this.
Nice. And we'll be doing a lot more of these kind of chats. So Josua, who will be here with me regularly, and Marike, we'd love
our
to
guest,
love to
starring guest today.
Our starring guest, and we'll have you back again. And I suppose the computer science guy will force me to say something like, follow us, subscribe, see our comments over here.
If you want to join in the conversation, tell us what you think at the bottom. We'll inform us, and we can respond if you have some negative comments. Which there's always someone like that. We'll maybe say something like respond to you next time or something.
Okay, so I'll give you. You want to do the.
You're telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, man.
So you want to do the sign off for us?
So I'll do that. Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye. Go well.
Yes.
Thanks very much for the time. Thanks.
Cool.